This is how we proved that the anxiety and the thoughts are actually the same. Thoughts are, evolutionarily speaking, a new form of the anxiety. The mechanism of their formation is almost identical. Both are due to the electromagnetic wave emissions of the brain as a whole. The most important difference between the anxiety and the thoughts is that the brain anxiety emissions happen spontaneously and unknowingly. As a result of the mutation of the fear gene severe tens of millions years ago, the brain emits electromagnetic waves the same way as when an individual experiences the fear of a known danger. Of a known danger. As a result of the mutation of the human brain, and only human brain emits electromagnetic waves as if it were experiencing the fear of a known danger. And yet, there is no danger. This strange mutation in the fear gene thus triggered the first symbolic event in the nature. To feel a physiological reaction of the fear when an animal faces a real danger has nothing symbolic about it. It's a purely physical, objective, tangible phenomenon. But to experience, in addition, constantly the same physiological reaction of the fear when there is not a slightest danger noticed by an individual, it's a pure abstraction. This is how the first time in the history of life on Earth the abstraction was born. The abstraction is going beyond the world of the physical objectivity. No animal, but only man knows this. All nature, except man, is confined to the world of physical objectivity. The breakthrough in this limitation, which took place several tens of millions years ago, was the appearance of the anxiety as the first abstraction in the several billion years of life on Earth. To feel the fear for no reason and to feel it constantly is precisely this breakthrough in the physical objectivity of the nature. It's perfectly legitimate to say that the breach in the world of physical objectivity by the anxiety allowed the only one animal species out of their countless number to move beyond the reality be defined by the laws of nature, the laws enshrined in the genes of all animals, and allowed human beings to enter a new reality, the reality of abstraction. The abstraction consists in denying the rules of the physical objectivity, in their liberation from the limitation of the mindless, unconscious objectivity. Finally, it's about perceiving oneself. It seems so little to perceive oneself, not much for us, beings who have always been functioning in this reality, the reality of abstraction. This reality is so obvious to us that we tend to extend it beyond the human world into the natural world. Meanwhile, these are two completely different worlds. It can quite rightly be said that Jupiter and Earth have more in common than the world of the nature, physical objectivity, and the world of the anxiety, the world of human abstraction. The nature does not understand completely our world and has absolutely no access to it. The appearance of the anxiety with its abstractness pushed the man into an additional dimension of functioning, a dimension that is forever and ultimately close to the rest of the nature. Thanks to the unusual abstraction of the anxiety, we entered a new dimension of existence, a symbolic dimension. It's in this dimension that the entire human culture, spirituality, and human civilization have developed. We live in the world of nature. We live it completely because the human body is subject to its laws in the same way as the organisms of all other animals and plants are. But at the same time, we have the ability to function in one dimension more than the rest of the nature. Is the dimension born of the first anxiety abstraction, of the first symbol out of which then countless symbols of thoughts arise and created spirituality, culture, and human civilization. In order to produce abstract, symbolic concepts, our brain had to learn to perform the electromagnetic wave emissions precisely and had to let them be the carriers of the innumerable symbols contained in the thoughts. This learning can be compared to learning to play an instrument, such as, for example, the guitar. It takes a long time to master the skill of properly pressing the strings with the fingers of one hand and striking the strings with the finger of the other hand. The resulting sound waves of various lengths, thanks to the shortening and lengthening of the length of the vibrating string, in the hands of a person who can already play the instrument, form a melody. Likewise, the brain must learn to play every symbolic element of the thoughts. The most intense learning of the brain, the learning to play symbols, takes place in the fetal and infancy period up to early childhood. It happens spontaneously, imperceptibly for us, and it's all the easier as the brain instrument is already playing anyway, playing the anxiety. It's only one symbol, but it's played before the mature fetus or newborn begins to tame the instrument of the brain and then learns to play symbols with it. The anxiety is the first symbol in the history of life on Earth, emitted by our brain since the moment it appears in the fetal period, the first sound, because it's difficult to call it a melody, if so, then an unpleasant melody. The anxiety, which is the constant wave emission of the brain during the wakefulness. It's obvious that only during the waking hours. Why is it obvious? Why is there no anxiety after we fall asleep? This is where we touch the origin of the fear as anxiety. Now, as I mentioned, the anxiety is a mutated fear. In other words, 20 some million years ago, there was a mutation in the fear gene that made the fear response so far active only when needed. That is, when there was a real perceived danger, active. It made it active throughout the waking hours without interruption. That doesn't mean that there is no immediate fear response anymore. Yes, as we well know, a real danger also puts us in a state of the fear, not anxiety. The attentive listener will easily notice a contradiction here. So how is that? The man feels the fear as anxiety throughout the waking hours, all the day round, and at the same time is able to react immediately to endanger also with the fear, but this time the punctual one? So it is. And this contradiction is only apparent and can be easily explained. As many probably remember, because it includes the basic genetics course as part of the primary school biology lessons, the genes of the most living plant and animal creatures, including, of course, humans, are found in the so-called pairs of chromosomes, with one chromosome from the father and the other from the mother. Every feature of a living organism is encoded in two genes, one from the father and the other from the mother. The expression of a specific trait, phenotype, will always be the result of the expression of the two genes that are responsible for that trait. Well, it's almost certain that a strange mutation of one of the two fear genes, strange because a mutation consisting not in blocking its activity, but in its hyperactivation, that this mutation has just given rise to our species. And so, one of the hyperactivated fear genes causes constant fear for no reason, without the presence of a danger, and the other continues to perform its original function, that's the point reaction of the mobilization of the organism to defend itself or to flee a threat.